Youthful mistake. 2 words. That's all it took to end 22 years of marriage. My husband didn't know I was standing behind that curtain. He didn't know I could hear every single word coming out of his mouth. He was too busy laughing with his mistress, too busy impressing his fancy new friends, too busy forgetting that the woman he was calling a mistake was the same woman who built everything he had. Youthful mistake. Like I was some old pair of shoes he wore when he was poor, and now he's ready to throw away. I was standing there in that ballroom champagne glass in my hand, wearing the plain black dress he picked out for me. He always wanted me invisible. Blend into the background, Marcella. Don't outshine me, Marcella. Stay in your lane, Marcella. And I did. For 22 years, I stayed in my lane while I paved his entire highway. But that night, that Friday night at the Atlanta Business Excellence Awards, that was the night everything changed. I heard my husband, Derek Hampton, the CEO of a $12 million construction company, tell his 32-year-old mistress that I was his youthful mistake, that he married too young, too poor, too desperate, that she was the upgrade he deserved. I stood there frozen. Listening to the man I sacrificed everything for describe me like I was a clearance item he regretted purchasing. "And you want to know the worst part?" he said. I was still stuck in that Baltimore diner where we met. Said some people evolve and some people don't. Said I never fit in this world, his world, the world I built for him with my bare hands. By Monday morning, Derek Hampton lost everything. His company, his reputation, his precious upgrade, his future. And I walked away with nearly $7 million, both my children and something money can't buy, my dignity. Let me tell you how a diner girl from Baltimore taught a so-called successful man the most expensive lesson of his entire life. But before I do, I need you to do something for me. If you've ever been made to feel small by someone who is supposed to love you, if you've ever given everything to someone who gave you nothing but heartache, if you've ever wondered if you even matter anymore, hit that subscribe button right now. This story is for you, and drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from. I want to know how far this message is going to travel tonight, because every woman breathing needs to hear what I'm about to say. Now, let me take you back to where this whole thing started. Let me show you exactly how I became invisible in my own life, and how I finally learned to see myself again. I met Derek Hampton when I was 19 years old, working the night shift at a little diner in Baltimore called Rosie's. My feet hurt, my back ached, and I smelled like grease and coffee every single night. But I was putting myself through community college, one paycheck at a time, and I was proud of that. Derek walked in around 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night. I remember because Tuesdays were slow, and I noticed him right away. He was covered in dust and dirt from a construction site, his clothes had holes in them, and he looked like he hadn't eaten a real meal in days. He sat down at the counter and ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a cup of coffee and a side of toast. I watched him count out his change penny by penny, and something in my heart just broke for him. I brought him his coffee and toast, but I also brought him a full plate of food, eggs, bacon, hash browns, everything. He looked up at me with those tired eyes and said he couldn't pay for all that. I told him it was on the house. I told him everybody needs a break sometimes. We started talking that night. He told me about his dreams of owning his own construction company one day. He said he'd been working as a laborer since he was 16, learning everything he could, but nobody would give him a chance. Banks wouldn't look at him. Investors laughed at him. His own family told him to just get a regular job and stop dreaming so big. I asked him why he kept trying. He said because he knew he was meant for more. And I looked at this man, this broke, tired, hungry man sitting in my diner at midnight, and I said something that would change both our lives forever. I said, "I believe you, and I'm going to help you get there." We got married 8 months later. I was 20 years old. He was 22. We had nothing but each other and a whole lot of faith. Those first few years, Lord, those were hard times. I worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat while Derek finished his trade certifications. I worked mornings at the diner, afternoons cleaning houses, and weekends doing catering. I slept maybe 4 hours a night. I was exhausted down to my bones. But every night I came home, I sat at our little kitchen table, and I worked on that business plan. I didn't know anything about construction, but I knew about numbers. I knew about organization. I knew about making something out of nothing. Derek would come home from his job sites, hands all cut up and calloused, and he'd look over what I wrote. He'd tell me about the technical stuff, and I'd figure out how to put it into words that bankers would understand. When we finally had a business plan worth showing, we went to the bank. Derek was so nervous he could barely speak. But I wasn't nervous. I knew what we had was good. The banker looked at Derek's credit score and laughed, said no bank in America would give a loan to someone with numbers like that. I asked if they would consider a co-signer, someone with better credit, someone who could guarantee the loan. The banker said that might change things, so I signed. I put my name on that $50,000 loan. I used my grandmother's inheritance, $15,000, as the collateral. Every penny my grandmother left me when she passed, I put it on the line for Derek's dream. That was the day Hampton Construction was born. I still remember the first contract we got, a small renovation job for an old church in East Baltimore. Derek did the work himself, just him and one other guy he knew from his old job. I did the books every night at our kitchen table, tracking every receipt, every expense, every penny. We didn't make much profit on that first job, but we made enough to prove we could do it. And from there, things just kept growing. Second contract, third contract, fifth contract, a small office space, then a bigger one, employees, equipment, more loans, all with my signature right alongside his. But somewhere along the way, something started to change. The company letterhead used to say D. Hampton Construction. Both our names were supposed to be on it, but Derek said it looked cleaner with just the initial, made it more professional. I didn't argue. Then when we moved into our first real office, my desk was in the back corner. Derek said it made more sense for him to be up front meeting with clients. I didn't argue. My title on the business cards was Administrative Assistant. Derek said we'd change it later when things stabilized. That was 15 years ago. We never changed it. And slowly, year by year, I became invisible. The clients shook Derek's hand and walked right past me. The employees called him Mr. Hampton and called me Marcella. Sometimes they didn't even know my last name. Sometimes they didn't know I was his wife. But here's the thing. I was still doing everything I'd always done. I managed the books. I negotiated with vendors when Derek didn't want to be bothered. I wrote the proposals that won us our biggest contracts. I caught errors that would have cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. I kept that company alive through 3 different times when we almost went bankrupt. Derek didn't know about those times. He didn't know because I handled it. I handled it quietly in the background the way I handled everything. That was my role, the invisible woman who kept everything running while her husband became a star. And for a long time, I told myself I was okay with that. I told myself this was partnership. This was marriage. This was what it meant to support your man. I didn't realize I was slowly disappearing. Fast forward to present day, just a regular Tuesday morning in our beautiful house in the suburbs of Atlanta. 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, 3-car garage. Everything Derek always said he wanted. I woke up at 5:30 like I always do, made breakfast for the whole household, coffee exactly the way Derek likes it, eggs exactly the way he likes them, toast not too dark, not too light. Derek came downstairs in his designer suit. Tom Ford, $3,000. I bought it for him last Christmas. He was looking at his phone the whole time, barely said good morning. Then he told me about the gala, the Atlanta Business Excellence Awards. They were giving him some kind of recognition for building a successful company. I started to say I was excited that I'd already bought a dress. He cut me off. He said it was a networking thing, partners only. He said maybe I should sit this one out. Sit this one out. Like I was some bench player on his team. Like I hadn't been to every single award ceremony, every charity dinner, every client event for the past 15 years. I asked him why. He said I wouldn't be comfortable. Said things were different now, said we were in a different league and these people had certain expectations. Certain expectations. I looked at my husband of 22 years, and I didn't even recognize him. This man in his expensive suit and his arrogant attitude looking down at me like I was something stuck on the bottom of his Italian leather shoes. He left for work without kissing me goodbye. He hadn't kissed me goodbye in months. I stopped counting how long ago. I stood in that kitchen, coffee getting cold, and I felt smaller than I'd ever felt in my entire life. That's what 22 years of sacrifice got me. A big empty house and a husband who didn't want to be seen in public with me. Later that morning, I went into the office like I always do. Hampton Construction Headquarters. We moved into this building 3 years ago when the company hit the $10 million mark. Glass windows, modern furniture, inspirational quotes on the walls. Derek's vision brought to life. My desk was still in the corner. After all these years still in the corner, I was walking through the lobby when one of the new employees stopped me. Young woman couldn't have been more than 25. She asked if she could help me, asked if I was there for a delivery. A delivery. I've been working at this company for 22 years, and she thought I was the delivery lady. I told her I worked there. She looked confused, like she couldn't quite figure out where I fit. I pointed to my little desk in the corner and walked past her before she could say anything else. That's when I saw her for the first time. She walked through the front door like she owned the place. Tall, light-skinned designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Hair perfect, makeup flawless, confidence dripping off her like expensive perfume. She walked straight to Derek's office, didn't check in at reception, didn't ask permission, just walked right through like she had an open invitation. I watched through the glass walls as Derek stood up from his desk with the biggest smile I'd seen on his face in years. He hugged her. Not a professional hug, a real hug. The kind of hug he used to give me. He was laughing at something she said, touching her arm, leaning in close, looking at her the way he used to look at me back when we were young and broke and dreaming together. I sat at my corner desk and watched my husband flirt with another woman in plain sight. That night I met my best friend Gwen for lunch. We've known each other since high school. She's the one person I can tell anything to, the one person who always tells me the truth, even when I don't want to hear it. She took one look at me and asked what was wrong, said I looked tired, said I looked sad. I told her I was fine. She told me to stop lying, so I told her. I told her Derek didn't want me at the gala. I told her about what he said about me not being comfortable, about certain expectations, about us being in a different league now. Gwen put down her fork and stared at me like I'd lost my mind. She asked when the last time was that Derek took me anywhere. Not a work event, just us, a date, a dinner, anything. I couldn't remember. She asked when the last time was that he told me I looked beautiful, that he thanked me for everything I do, that he acted like my husband instead of my boss. I couldn't remember that either. She told me straight. Said Derek telling me to sit out the gala was a red flag the size of Texas. Said something was going on. Said I needed to open my eyes. I told her she was overreacting. Said he was just stressed with work. Said things would get better when the current projects were finished. Gwen just shook her head. She'd heard all my excuses before. A few days later, Derek's mother came over for dinner. Mother Lorraine. She's the only person in Derek's family I've ever been close to. His sisters don't like me, never have. They think I'm stuck up because I tried to better myself. But Mother Lorraine has always treated me like a daughter. Derek wasn't home, of course. Working late, he said. Some big project. Always some big project these days. So it was just me and Lorraine at the dinner table eating the meal I cooked for a husband who wasn't there. She asked where her son was. I gave her the usual answer. Working. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. She said she saw Derek last week, downtown. I said he has meetings downtown all the time. It's nothing unusual. She said this wasn't a meeting. She said he was with a woman, a young woman, light-skinned, tall, fancy clothes, and this woman had her hand on Derek's chest like she owned him. I stopped breathing. Mother Lorraine said she didn't want to say anything at first, thought maybe she was seeing things. But the way Derek was looking at this woman, the way he was smiling at her, that wasn't how you look at a business associate. That was how you look at someone you're in love with. I tried to make excuses, said maybe it was a client, maybe it looked different than it was. But Lorraine stopped me. She told me not to do that, not to make excuses for a man who doesn't deserve them. She said she did that for Derek's father for 15 years, and look where it got her. Divorced and alone, raising a son by herself, while his father ran around with every woman in Baltimore. She said she knew what she raised, and she knew what I had done for her son. She said Derek had forgotten, but she never would. Then she held my hand and looked me straight in the eyes. She said if her son was doing what she thought he was doing, I needed to know. I needed to protect myself. Because the Derek she saw downtown wasn't the same boy she raised. He was a stranger, and strangers are dangerous. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there in the dark in a bed that felt too big next to a pillow that should have had my husband's head on it. All those years, all that sacrifice, all that love, was it all for nothing? Was I really just a mistake to him? Something he was trying to correct. Thursday night, Derek was out late again. Another meeting, he said. "Don't wait up," he said. So I didn't wait. Instead, I did something I'd never done in 22 years of marriage. I went through his things. His home office was always off limits. He said he needed space to think, space to work without interruption. I respected that. I never questioned it. But that night, I opened that door. I sat down at his desk, and I started looking through his drawers. My hands were shaking the whole time. Part of me felt guilty, like I was violating some sacred trust. But another part of me, the part that Mother Lorraine had woken up, knew I needed to see the truth. I found a credit card statement in the bottom drawer. A card I didn't know existed. Secondary account, his name only. I looked at the charges and my heart stopped. Jewelry store. $15,000. I didn't get jewelry for my birthday. I didn't get jewelry for our anniversary. I got a gift card to a spa I've never even been to. Hotels. 4 seasons, multiple nights. He told me he was on business trips. He told me he was meeting with investors in New York. Restaurants. Expensive places. Table for 2 every time. And the worst one. Cartier. $45,000. An engagement ring. An engagement ring. For someone who wasn't his wife. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the paper. But I wasn't done. I needed more. I needed to know everything. I opened his laptop. He's never changed his passwords. I'm the one who set up all his accounts 20 years ago when he didn't know how to use email. He never thought to lock me out because he never thought I'd look. I went to his email and I found them. Hundreds of messages between him and someone named Simone Cartier. Simone, the woman I saw in his office. The woman Mother Lorraine saw downtown. I read their messages and each one was a knife in my heart. He told her he couldn't wait to start their new life together. He told her the divorce would be finalized in 6 months. He told her the penthouse was almost ready. Penthouse. He bought her a penthouse. There were photos attached, him and Simone on a beach in Miami. That was the business trip he took last month. He told me he was meeting with investors. He was meeting with his mistress in a 5-star resort while I sat at home waiting for him like a fool. I kept scrolling, and the messages got worse. He wrote to her about me, called me boring, called me plain, said I had no ambition, no style, no class, said I was holding him back from the life he deserved. He said he should have left me years ago, said the only reason he stayed was because he felt obligated. But now that he'd met her, he finally understood what real love felt like. Real love. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark for a long time. 22 years. I gave him 22 years of my life. I gave him my youth, my dreams, my grandmother's inheritance, my credit, my sweat, my tears, everything I had. And he was telling another woman I had no ambition. I wrote his business plan. I built his company. I saved his behind more times than he ever knew. But none of that mattered. Not to him. To him, I was just the old model he was ready to trade in for something newer and shinier. Friday morning came, and I made a decision. Derek told me not to come to the gala. He told me to stay home like a good little wife while he went out and pretended to be a self-made man. But I wasn't going to stay home. Not this time. I told him I was going to visit my sister Pat for the weekend. He barely looked up from his phone when he said okay. He didn't care where I was as long as I wasn't at his precious gala. But I wasn't going to Pat's house. I got dressed in that plain black dress he always wanted me to wear. The one that made me blend into the wallpaper. The one designed to make me invisible. And I drove to the gala. I didn't go through the main entrance. I know that venue inside and out. I'm the one who booked it for Derek's 40th birthday party 3 years ago. There's a side door near the kitchen, a staff entrance. I slipped in through there and made my way to the main ballroom. The place was beautiful. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, flowers everywhere. Atlanta's business elite drinking champagne and congratulating each other on how successful they all were. And there was Derek, center of attention, wearing the Tom Ford suit I bought him, smiling that charming smile that made me fall in love with him 22 years ago. But he wasn't alone. She was right there on his arm. Simone, the upgrade. I found a spot behind a curtain near the stage where I could watch without being seen, invisible just like always. A group of men came up to Derek. Business partners, investors, the kind of people he was always trying to impress. They were shaking his hand, patting his back, telling him what an incredible company he'd built. One of them looked at Simone and asked if this was his wife, and Derek laughed. He actually laughed. He said no, this was Simone, his partner. In more ways than one, he said, and she smiled like they were sharing some private joke. The man looked confused, said he thought Derek was married. Derek waved his hand like he was swatting away a fly. Technically, yes, he said. But Marcella, she was his youthful mistake. He married too young, too poor, too desperate. Wrong reasons, wrong person. He pulled Simone closer to him. But Simone here, he said she was the upgrade he deserved. Young, sophisticated, beautiful. She fit in this world. Marcella never did. She was still stuck in that Baltimore diner, he said. Some people evolve and some people don't. They all laughed. Like it was the funniest thing they ever heard. Simone said, poor thing, but at least you learned baby. And they laughed again. I stood behind that curtain with champagne in my hand and tears running down my face. Youthful mistake. That's what I was to him, after everything. But then, something happened. Something shifted inside me. The tears stopped. My jaw tightened. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. I felt angry, not sad, not hurt, angry. He called me a mistake. He called me a mistake while standing in a room full of people I helped him impress. Wearing a suit I bought. Running a company I built. No, that wasn't how this story was going to end. I set down my champagne glass. I wiped my face. I walked out of that ballroom and got in my car. And I pulled out my phone. I texted my sister Pat. I texted my best friend Gwen. I said we needed to meet tonight. Emergency. Something had awakened in me. Something that had been sleeping for 22 years. The woman who worked 3 jobs and built a company from nothing was still in there. She'd just been buried under years of being told to stay small, stay quiet, stay invisible. But not anymore. Derek Hampton thought he was getting rid of his youthful mistake. He had no idea he was about to meet her for the first time. It was almost midnight when I pulled up to my sister Pat's house. The lights were on. She was waiting for me. Pat is 5 years older than me. She's an accountant at one of the biggest firms in Atlanta. Sharp as a razor, doesn't take nonsense from anyone. She warned me about Derek back when we first got together. Said he had hungry eyes. Said men with hungry eyes are never satisfied no matter how much you feed them. I didn't listen then, but I was ready to listen now. Gwen was already there when I walked in. She must have broken every speed limit in Georgia to get there before me. That's the kind of friend she is. When you call and say emergency, she doesn't ask questions. She just shows up. Pat took one look at my face and went straight to the kitchen. She came back with 3 glasses and a bottle of whiskey. Said I looked like I needed something stronger than coffee. She wasn't wrong. I sat down at her kitchen table and I told them everything, the credit card statements, the emails, the engagement ring, the penthouse, the photos from Miami. And then I told them what I heard at the gala. Youthful mistake. Gwen's hand flew to her mouth. Pat just sat there perfectly still, her jaw tight. When I finished talking, the room was silent. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then Gwen exploded. She said she knew it. She knew something was wrong. She said she'd been telling me for months that Derek was acting different, that something was off, that I needed to pay attention. But Pat raised her hand and Gwen went quiet. Pat looked at me with those sharp accountant eyes of hers. She wasn't interested in what Derek did or who he did it with. That was done. That was in the past. She wanted to know what I was going to do about it. I said I didn't know. I said I was still in shock. I said I couldn't think straight. Pat shook her head. She said thinking straight was exactly what I needed to do. Emotions come later. Right now we needed facts. We needed strategy. We needed a plan. She asked me a question that changed everything. She asked me whose name was on the company. I didn't understand what she meant at first. I said Derek was the CEO. He was the owner. It was his company. Pat leaned forward. She asked me again, slower this time. She asked whose name was on the original documents. The LLC filing, the operating agreement, the bank accounts. I thought back to those early days, that tiny apartment, that kitchen table covered in papers. Me and Derek signing document after document, barely understanding what we were signing, just knowing we were building something together. I told her both our names were on the original LLC. We filed together. We were partners. Pat nodded. She asked about the loan, the first big loan that got the company started. The $50,000. I told her I co-signed. Derek's credit was too low. The bank wouldn't approve him a loan. So I put my name on the loan. I put my grandmother's inheritance up as collateral. Pat's eyes got wide. She asked if that loan was ever refinanced, if my name was ever removed. I said I didn't think so. Derek handled the banking after the first few years. I just did the books. Pat sat back in her chair. She had this look on her face like she'd just found a winning lottery ticket in her pocket. She told me I needed to understand something. She said what I just told her changed everything. She explained it to me slowly, like I was a child. She said if my name was still on that original loan as a guarantor, I had legal standing in the company. She said if both our names were on the LLC and the operating agreement, I wasn't just an employee, I was an owner. I said that couldn't be right. I said I was just the administrative assistant. That's what my business card said. Pat laughed. Not a happy laugh, a bitter one. She said business cards don't mean anything. Legal documents do. Legal. She asked if I remembered signing anything that gave away my ownership. Any buyout agreement, any transfer of shares, anything at all. I searched my memory. 22 years of papers and contracts and signatures. I couldn't remember anything like that. Derek never asked me to sign away my stake. He never even mentioned it. Pat smiled. She said that was because Derek probably forgot I had a stake. He'd been playing CEO for so long, he forgot who helped him become one. Gwen was catching on now. She asked what exactly I owned. Pat said we needed to find out. She said we needed to see the original documents. But based on what I was telling her, it sounded like I might own a significant portion of a $12 million company. $12 million. That's what Hampton Construction was worth now. I knew that number. I saw it on the financial reports I prepared every quarter. Pat did the math out loud. She said if I owned even 30%, that was over $3 million. If it was 50%, that was $6 million. Plus the house, plus the cars, plus investments, plus 22 years of marital assets. My head was spinning. An hour ago, I thought I was going to walk away from this marriage with nothing. I thought Derek held all the cards. I thought I was just a diner girl from Baltimore who got lucky and then got left behind. But now Pat was telling me I might own half of everything. Gwen grabbed my hands across the table. She told me to listen carefully. She said I wasn't the victim here. I was the asset. And Derek was about to find out exactly how valuable I was. Pat pulled out her phone. She said she had a friend from her firm who specialized in divorce and corporate law, a woman named Victoria Stone. Pat said she was the best in Atlanta. She said Victoria ate cheating husbands for breakfast. She made the call right there. It was past midnight, but Victoria answered anyway. Pat explained the situation in that clipped, professional way accountants talk. Facts only, no emotion. When she hung up, she looked at me and said Victoria wanted to meet first thing tomorrow morning. Emergency consultation. She said from what Pat described, this case was exactly the kind Victoria loved. I asked what kind that was. Pat smiled again. This time it was a real smile, a warrior's smile. She said the kind where the man who thinks he owns everything finds out he owns nothing, and the woman he threw away walks out with everything she built. I didn't sleep that night. But for the first time in months, it wasn't because I was sad or worried or scared. It was because I was planning. Victoria Stone's office was on the 32nd floor of one of those glass towers in downtown Atlanta. The kind of building I used to walk past and wonder what kind of people worked up there. Now I was riding the elevator up, clutching a folder full of documents about to become one of her clients. Pat came with me, said she wasn't letting me do this alone. Gwen wanted to come too, but she had to work. She made me promise to call her the minute the meeting was over. Victoria's office was exactly what I expected. Expensive furniture, law degrees covering the walls, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the whole city. This was a woman who had won a lot of battles. Victoria herself was not what I expected. She was around 50, black natural hair going gray at the temples. She wore a simple navy suit and no jewelry except for a thin gold wedding band. She looked like someone's favorite aunt, the kind of aunt who gives good advice and doesn't judge. But her eyes told a different story. Those eyes were sharp. Those eyes had seen everything. Those eyes could spot a lie from across the room. She shook my hand and told me to sit down. She already had a legal pad in front of her pen ready. She said Pat had given her the basics, but she wanted to hear everything directly from me. She said she wanted to understand not just the facts but the feelings, because in her experience, feelings often led to facts that people forgot to mention. So I told her everything. From the beginning, the diner, the dreams, the sacrifice, the building of a company, the slow disappearance, the affair, the gala, the words that shattered me. Youthful mistake. Victoria wrote the whole time. She didn't interrupt, she didn't react, she just listened and wrote. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me for a long moment. Then she said something I'll never forget. She said, "Mrs. Hampton, this is remarkable." I asked what she meant. She said she'd handled many divorces, high-asset divorces, messy divorces, celebrity divorces. She thought she'd seen everything, but she'd never seen a case quite like mine. She explained it piece by piece. First the loan, the original $50,000 loan that started the company. I co-signed. I was still listed as guarantor. That loan was rolled into subsequent financing, but my guarantee was never released. If the company failed, creditors could come after me. But if the company succeeded, I had legal claim to its success. Second, the LLC documents. Both our names were on the original filing. Both our names were on the operating agreement. That meant I wasn't just an employee. I was a co-founder, an owner. She asked if I knew what percentage ownership was specified in the operating agreement. I said I thought it was equal, 50-50. That's what we agreed back then. Victoria nodded slowly. She said if that was true, and if no subsequent documents amended that agreement, then I owned 50% of Hampton Construction, 50% of $12 million, $6 million. I felt dizzy. I had to grab the arm of my chair. Victoria wasn't done. She said the situation got even more interesting when we added in the personal assets. The house. She asked whose name was on the deed. I said both our names. We bought it together. She asked about the cars. I said both our names. Everything was in both our names. That's how we always did it. She asked about retirement accounts, investments, savings. I said I'd have to check. Derek handled most of that, but I was pretty sure everything was joint. Victoria leaned forward. She said here was where Derek made his biggest mistake. Not the affair, not the cruel words. Those were bad, but they were personal. His biggest mistake was financial. She asked if I was aware that Derek had been moving money around. Large purchases, hidden accounts, the penthouse for his mistress. I said I knew about some of it, the credit card statements I found. Victoria said there was probably more, a lot more. And all of that activity, all of that spending, all of those secret accounts that was marital money, that was our money. Money he was spending without my knowledge or consent. In legal terms, that was called dissipation of marital assets, and judges hated it. She said when we went to court, and we would go to court, every dollar Derek spent on his mistress would be added back into the marital estate. Every hotel room, every dinner, every piece of jewelry. That penthouse he bought her, all of it. And I would be entitled to my share. I asked what that meant in real terms. What would I actually get? Victoria did some quick calculations on her pad. She said based on preliminary estimates, assuming the company was worth $12 million and I owned 50%, assuming the house and other assets added another $2 million, assuming Derek had dissipated at least $1 million on his affair. She looked up at me. She said I was looking at somewhere between $6 and $7 million. Maybe more, depending on what else we found. $6 to $7 million. I started to cry. Not sad tears, not angry tears, just overwhelming tears. 22 years of being told I was less than. 22 years of being invisible. 22 years of wondering if I mattered. And now this woman in her fancy office was telling me I mattered a great deal, about $7 million worth. Victoria handed me a tissue. She said she understood. She said she'd seen this reaction before. Too many times. She said the worst thing about financial abuse, and that's what this was how it made women feel worthless. How it made them believe they had no options. How it kept them trapped in situations they should have left years ago. But I wasn't trapped anymore. She laid out the plan. Monday morning, Derek would be served with divorce papers. Not just divorce papers. A full package. Divorce petition. Emergency motion to freeze all assets. Shareholder lawsuit asserting my ownership rights in Hampton Construction. Request for temporary spousal support. Request for exclusive use of the marital home. All of it hitting him at once. Before he could hide anything else. Before he could make any more moves. Victoria said surprise was our greatest weapon. Right now, Derek thought I was a pushover. He thought I'd be devastated and helpless. He probably expected me to cry and beg and eventually accept whatever crumbs he offered. He had no idea what was coming. I asked what I needed to do. Victoria said I needed to gather documents, everything I could find, the original company papers, bank statements going back as far as possible, tax returns, anything that showed my contribution to the business, anything that showed where our money went. She said Pat would help with that. Accountants knew how to follow money trails. She also said I needed to be careful. Don't tip Derek off. Don't confront him. Don't change my behavior. Let him think everything is normal until Monday morning when the papers hit his desk. I asked about the children. Jalen was 21, legally an adult. But Destiny was only 18 and still in college. I was worried about how this would affect them. Victoria said children of divorce, even adult children, often had valuable information. They saw things. They heard things. They might have evidence we could use. I thought about what Jalen said a few weeks ago. About how Dad was different now. About how he barely came home anymore. About how he talked to someone on the phone late at night when he thought no one was listening. And I thought about Destiny, my baby girl, Daddy's little princess. She worshipped Derek. This was going to break her heart. But then I remembered what Victoria said. Financial abuse. That's what this was. Derek hadn't just cheated on me. He'd stolen from me. He'd erased me. He'd made me feel like nothing while he built an empire on my bones. My children deserve to know the truth. They deserve to see their mother stand up for herself. They deserve to learn that you don't let people treat you like a mistake, no matter who they are. I left Victoria's office with a list of tasks and a court date circled on my calendar. Monday morning, 3 days away. Derek had no idea his whole world was about to collapse, but I did. And for the first time in 22 years, I felt powerful. Saturday afternoon, I went home to gather the documents Victoria needed. Derek was gone. Golfing, he said. But I knew better now. He was probably with Simone planning their future in that penthouse he bought with my money. Let him plan. His future was about to look very different than he imagined. I started in the home office, the one that was always off limits, the one I never questioned because I was a good, trusting wife. Not anymore. I went through every drawer, every file folder, every box in the closet. 22 years of documents. Some of them I remembered signing. Most of them I'd never seen before. I found the original operating agreement. There it was in black and white. My name right next to Derek's. Equal partners. 50-50 ownership of Hampton Construction, LLC. He never changed it. In all these years, he never had me sign anything giving up my shares. Maybe he forgot. Maybe he assumed I'd never check. Maybe he thought I was too stupid to know what it meant. His mistake. His very expensive mistake. I found the original loan documents, too. My signature as co-guarantor. My grandmother's inheritance listed as collateral. Without my name on that loan, there would be no Hampton Construction. I photographed everything, made copies of everything, put the originals back exactly where I found them. Victoria said not to take anything that might tip Derek off, just document and copy. Then I went to the filing cabinet in the master bedroom, the one with our personal records. Tax returns going back 15 years. Every single one showed Hampton Construction as our primary source of income. Every single one listed me as an owner. Derek had been signing tax returns that acknowledged my ownership while pretending I owned nothing. Bank statements. Our joint account showed a steady flow of money in from the business, but there were also large withdrawals I didn't recognize. 5,000 here, 10,000 there, going back almost 2 years. He'd been draining our account long before I found out about Simone. This wasn't a sudden affair. This was a planned exit strategy. He'd been preparing to leave me for years. The credit card statements were even worse. Not just the secret card I'd already found. Our main joint card, the one I thought we both used, had charges I'd never seen. Fancy hotels on nights he told me he was working late. Jewelry stores when I didn't get any jewelry. A clothing boutique I'd never been to. He was buying her things. Expensive things. While I wore the same plain black dress to every event because he told me I didn't need to stand out. I made copies of everything. Organized them by date. Created a timeline. Pat had taught me well. Then I did something I'd been dreading. I called my children. Jalen answered first. He was at his apartment near campus. I told him I needed to talk to him about something important. Could he come home tomorrow? He said yes right away. No questions. He heard something in my voice, and he knew. Destiny was harder. She was at her dorm studying for finals. I didn't want to worry her, but I needed her there too. She asked if everything was okay. I said I'd explain tomorrow. I asked if she could come home for lunch. She said yes, but I could hear the confusion in her voice. We didn't do family lunches during finals week. Something was clearly wrong. I barely slept that night. Derek came home late smelling like perfume and whiskey. He didn't even try to hide it anymore. He thought I was too blind to notice. He crawled into bed next to me and fell asleep within minutes. I lay there in the dark, inches from the man who'd betrayed me, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just cold, clear purpose. Tomorrow I would tell my children the truth, and we would face whatever came next together. Sunday morning, Derek left early. Said he had a meeting with investors on a Sunday. He didn't even bother to make the lie believable. I made lunch, a real Sunday lunch like we used to have when the kids were little. Fried chicken, mac and cheese, collard greens, cornbread, comfort food. They were going to need it. Jalen arrived first. He hugged me tight and asked what was going on. I told him to wait for his sister. I only wanted to say this once. Destiny arrived 20 minutes later. She looked worried. I could see she'd been crying, probably stressed about finals, or maybe she sensed something. We sat down at the dining room table, the same table where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays and graduation dinners, the same table where we'd said grace and shared stories and pretended to be a happy family. I looked at my children, my beautiful children, and I told them the truth. I told them their father was having an affair. I told them about Simone. I told them about the emails and the hotels and the engagement ring. I told them about the penthouse. Jalen's face went hard. He didn't look surprised. He looked angry. Destiny started crying. She shook her head. She said, "No, that couldn't be right. Daddy would never do that." I must have misunderstood. I told her I wished I had. I told her I wished this was all a mistake. But I had proof. I had evidence. Then I told them the worst part. I told them what their father said about me at the gala, the words he used, the way he laughed, youthful mistake. Destiny stopped crying. She went very still. Jalen stood up. He said he needed some air. He walked out to the backyard and stood there with his hands on his hips, looking at nothing. I gave them both time. This was a lot to process. Their whole image of their father was crumbling. Their whole sense of family was shifting. After a few minutes, Jalen came back in. He sat down and looked at me with eyes that were much older than 21. He said he knew something was wrong. He'd known for a while. Dad was never home. When he was home, he was on the phone with someone, laughing in that flirty way. He said he heard Dad say he loved someone on the phone late one night. He thought maybe he was imagining it. He wasn't imagining it. Then Destiny spoke. Her voice was small, broken. She said she had something to show me. She pulled out her phone and found a video. She said this happened a few months ago. Dad was on a video call with her, supposed to be on a business trip. But a woman walked into the frame, half-dressed. Obviously just got out of bed. Dad ended the call fast, but Destiny had been screen recording for something else. She caught the whole thing. She never told anyone. She didn't know what to do. She convinced herself it was nothing, that she misunderstood, that the woman must have been a hotel employee or something. But she kept the video, just in case. I watched it. There was Derek, my husband, in a hotel room, and there was Simone walking in, wearing nothing but a robe, sliding her arms around him from behind. And Derek's voice, annoyed at being interrupted. "Just Destiny, she doesn't know anything." Simone's voice, "When are you going to tell them about us?" Derek's voice, "After the divorce is finalized. Marcella's going to take it hard. She has nothing without me." Nothing without him. I had the business plans, I had the loans, I had the years of sacrifice, and I had nothing without him. I handed the phone back to Destiny. She was crying again. I hugged both my children. I told them I was sorry they had to learn this way. I told them this wasn't their fault. None of it was their fault. Then I told them what I was going to do. I was filing for divorce. I was claiming my share of the company. I was taking back everything that was rightfully mine. And I asked them to stand with me. Jalen didn't hesitate. He said he was with me. He said Dad had been acting like a king for too long while Mom did all the work. He said it was time for the truth to come out. Destiny took longer. She was still processing, still grieving the father she thought she knew. But finally she nodded. She said she was scared, but she was with me too. She said what Dad did was wrong, and she couldn't pretend it wasn't. We held hands around that dining room table. 3 of us against the world. Well, 3 of us plus Pat, Gwen, Victoria, and one very important ally I hadn't talked to yet, Mother Lorraine. Sunday evening, Mother Lorraine called. She said Derek had stopped by her house earlier, said he was in a good mood. Too good. He was talking about big changes coming, about new opportunities, about starting fresh. She asked him what he meant. He just smiled and said she'd understand soon. Then she asked about me, asked how I was doing, and Derek's smile disappeared. He said I was being difficult lately, emotional, probably going through something. Women's issues. Women's issues. That's how he explained throwing away 22 years of marriage. Women's issues. Lorraine said she knew something was very wrong. She could feel it in her bones, and she wanted to know the truth. So I told her. I told her everything. The affair, the emails, the money, the penthouse, the gala, the words her son used to describe me in front of strangers. There was a long silence on the phone. Then Lorraine said something that broke me wide open. She said she was ashamed, not of me, of Derek, of the man she raised, of what he'd become. She said she remembered when he was young, when he was hungry, when he was kind. She remembered how much he loved me back then, how he used to talk about me like I hung the moon, how he said he'd never be able to repay me for believing in him. She said somewhere along the way that boy got lost. He got so caught up in success and money and image that he forgot who he really was. He forgot where he came from. He forgot who brought him there. And now he was about to throw away the best thing that ever happened to him for some young woman who only saw his wallet. I started crying. Not because I was sad about losing Derek. I'd already grieved that loss. I was crying because even after everything, even after what her son did, Lorraine was choosing me. She asked what I needed. She asked how she could help. I told her I was filing for divorce. I told her I was fighting for my share of the company. I told her I needed all the evidence I could get. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said she had something. She said years ago, when the company was still young, Derek asked her to hold on to some papers. Important documents, he said. Things he didn't want lying around the office or the house. Things he wanted to keep safe. She never looked at them, never asked what they were, just put them in a box in her closet and forgot about them. But now she was thinking, maybe I should see them. I drove to her house that night. She met me at the door with a cardboard box that had been taped shut for almost 15 years. We sat at her kitchen table and opened it together. What we found was more valuable than gold. Tax returns from the early years of the company. The ones that showed my name as co-owner. The ones that proved I was there from the beginning. Bank statements from the original business account. Deposits in my handwriting. Checks I signed. Transfers I authorized. Contracts from our first major clients. My signature right next to Derek's. Proof that I wasn't just an assistant. I was a decision maker, a partner. And at the bottom of the box, something I'd never seen before. A handwritten letter from Derek to me, dated 15 years ago, probably written after our first really successful year. It said, "My dearest Sella, I couldn't have done any of this without you. You believed in me when nobody else did. You sacrificed everything so I could chase my dreams. This company is as much yours as it is mine. No matter what happens, I want you to know that. You are my partner, my equal, my everything. I love you forever. Derek. I read that letter 3 times. Each time the words cut deeper. He knew. He always knew. He knew exactly what I'd done for him, what I'd given up, what I was worth, and he forgot anyway. Or maybe he didn't forget. Maybe he just hoped I would. Mother Lorraine put her hand over mine. She told me to take everything. She told me to use it. She said she loved her son, but she loved justice more. She said what Derek was doing was wrong, and she wasn't going to stand by and watch him destroy a good woman. I asked her if she was sure. I asked if she understood that this would probably mean Derek would never speak to her again. She laughed. It was a sad laugh, but there was strength in it too. She said Derek barely spoke to her now anyway. He was too busy being important, too busy with his fancy friends and his young girlfriend. He didn't have time for his mama, but she had time for me, and she would have my back until the end. I hugged her for a long time. This woman who should have been on her son's side. This woman who chose truth over blood. I left her house with that box of documents and that letter tucked safely in my purse. Tomorrow was Monday. Tomorrow was the day everything changed. Derek thought he was about to get rid of his youthful mistake. He had no idea that his youthful mistake had just gathered every piece of ammunition she needed. The war was about to begin. Monday morning, D-Day. I woke up before dawn. Derek was still asleep, snoring softly, completely unaware that his life was about to fall apart. I got dressed in the dark. Not the plain black dress this time. I put on a red blouse. Bold, visible, the color of power. I made coffee like I always did. I set out breakfast like I always did. I kissed Derek on the forehead when he woke up like I always did. He looked at me with those eyes that used to make me melt. He said I looked nice today. He said the red was a good color on me. I said thank you. I said I felt like trying something different. He smiled. That charming smile. That lying smile. He had no idea. He left for the office at 8 o'clock, same as always. I watched him drive away in his luxury car, the car I co-signed for the car that would soon have my name removed from the title. Then I called Victoria. She said everything was in place. The process server was on his way to Hampton Construction headquarters. Derek would be served by 10 o'clock. I asked what I should do in the meantime. She said go about my day, go to the office if I wanted, act normal. When the papers were served, I could leave, but not before. Don't tip him off. So I went to the office, my little corner desk, my invisible post. The morning was quiet, normal, people shuffling papers, taking calls, drinking coffee. Nobody knew that a bomb was about to go off. At 9:45, I saw the process server walk through the front door. He was an older man, gray hair, briefcase. He looked like somebody's grandfather, harmless. He asked the receptionist for Derek Hampton, said he had a delivery that required a signature. The receptionist pointed toward Derek's office. The corner office, the big one with the view. I watched through the glass walls as the man knocked on Derek's door. I watched Derek wave him in, barely looking up from his phone. I watched the man hand over the envelope. I watched Derek sign for it without even looking. And then I watched Derek open it. His face went white, pure white, like he'd seen a ghost. He read the first page, then the second. Then he started flipping through the whole stack faster and faster, his hands shaking. Then he stood up. His chair flew back and crashed against the wall. He was screaming something, but I couldn't hear through the glass. Everyone in the office stopped. Everyone turned to look. Nobody had ever seen Derek Hampton lose his composure like this. He came storming out of his office, papers in his hand, looking around wildly. His eyes found me, sitting at my corner desk, in my red blouse, not invisible anymore. He marched toward me. His face was purple with rage. The veins in his neck were bulging. He threw the papers at me. They scattered across my desk, across the floor. He shouted at me, asked what I thought I was doing, asked if I'd lost my mind, asked how I dared to do this to him. I stood up, slowly, calmly. I looked him right in the eyes, and I said, I'm taking back what's mine. Derek, every single thing you forgot I built. He was speechless. For the first time in our marriage, Derek Hampton had nothing to say. I picked up my purse. I walked past him, past all the staring employees, past the receptionist with her mouth hanging open. I walked out of Hampton Construction headquarters with my head held high. The papers told him everything: divorce, asset freeze, shareholder lawsuit, spousal support request, exclusive use of marital home. It was all there in black and white. Every claim, every demand, every receipt. He had 3 options: fight and lose, negotiate and lose less, or run and lose everything. There was no option where he won. I got in my car and drove to Victoria's office. She was waiting for me with a bottle of champagne. She said the emergency motion had been filed. The judge had granted a temporary freeze on all accounts pending hearing. Derek couldn't move a penny without court approval. She said his lawyer had already called, frantic, demanding to know what this was about. Victoria told them to read the filing. It was all very clear. She said the next few days would be intense. Derek would try everything. He'd threaten, he'd beg, he'd bargain. He'd probably try to charm his way out of this. But we had the documents. We had the evidence. We had his own words on video calling me nothing. We had him. I took a glass of champagne and raised it. I said, "To youthful mistakes." Victoria laughed. She raised her glass. "To expensive lessons," she said. We drank. Outside Victoria's window, Atlanta sparkled in the morning sun. Somewhere across town, Derek was probably calling Simone, panicking, trying to figure out how to save himself. But there was no saving this. 22 years ago, a diner girl from Baltimore believed in a broke construction worker with a big dream. She gave him everything: her money, her time, her credit, her faith, her life. And he called her a mistake. Now that mistake was about to cost him everything he had. And I wasn't sorry. Not one bit. 3 weeks later, I walked into the Fulton County Courthouse wearing a cream-colored suit I bought with my own money. Not company money. Not Derek's allowance. My own money from the temporary support the judge had already ordered. It was the first new outfit I'd bought for myself in years. And it fit perfectly. Pat was with me. Gwen was with me. Victoria walked ahead of us like a general leading troops into battle. We were ready. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lights, that particular smell of old paper and anxiety that all government buildings seem to have. The American flag hung behind the judge's bench. Justice was supposed to happen here. We took our seats at the plaintiff's table. Victoria arranged her files with military precision. She had everything organized, color-coded, ready to present. Then Derek walked in. I barely recognized him. The confident CEO was gone. In his place was a man who looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. His suit was wrinkled, his tie was crooked. There were bags under his eyes so dark they looked like bruises. He had a lawyer with him, some young guy from a mid-tier firm, not the expensive attorneys Derek usually bragged about knowing. Those lawyers probably wanted payment up front, and with his assets frozen, Derek couldn't pay. Good. Derek looked at me as he walked to the defendant's table. I expected anger. I expected hatred. But what I saw was something else entirely: fear. Derek Hampton was afraid of me. 22 years of marriage, and this was the first time he'd ever looked at me like that, like I was someone to be reckoned with, like I had power. Because I did. The judge entered, an older black woman with silver hair and reading glasses perched on her nose. Judge Patricia Williams. Victoria had told me about her. 30 years on the bench, no tolerance for games. Especially no tolerance for men who thought they could hide assets and cheat their wives. We were in good hands. The hearing began with Victoria presenting our case. She was magnificent. She started with the company. She showed the original LLC documents with both our names. She showed the operating agreement that gave me 50% ownership. She showed the loan documents with my signature as guarantor. Then she showed the tax returns. 22 years of returns, every single one, listing me as a co-owner of Hampton Construction. Derek had been signing these returns himself. He couldn't claim he didn't know. Derek's lawyer tried to object. He said the ownership was just a formality. He said I never actually participated in running the company. He said I was an employee, not an owner. Victoria smiled, that dangerous smile I was learning to love. She presented exhibit after exhibit, contracts I had signed as an authorized representative, bank records showing deposits I had made, emails from clients thanking me for saving deals that Derek had almost lost, performance reviews that Derek himself had written praising my essential contributions to the company. She even presented the letter, the handwritten letter from Derek that Mother Lorraine had kept all these years. Victoria read it out loud, every word. "This company is as much yours as it is mine. You are my partner, my equal, my everything." Derek's own words, in his own handwriting, dated and witnessed. His lawyer had no response. Then Victoria moved to the personal assets, the house, the cars, the investments, all jointly owned, all subject to equitable distribution. And then she got to the good part, the dissipation of marital assets. She showed the credit card statements, the secret card I didn't know about, hundreds of thousands of dollars spent over 2 years on hotels, jewelry, designer clothes, expensive dinners. None of it for me. All of it for Simone. She showed the penthouse purchase, $800,000. Company money used to buy a love nest for his mistress. That wasn't just wasteful spending. That was embezzlement from a company I partly owned. She showed the bank withdrawals, the steady draining of our joint accounts, money that should have been ours siphoned away to fund his affair. And then she played the video, Destiny's video, the one where Derek was caught with Simone on a video call, the one where he said, "I had nothing without him." The courtroom was silent as it played. You could hear Derek's voice clear as day dismissing me as nothing. You could see Simone half-dressed wrapping herself around my husband. And you could see the exact moment on the video when Derek realized his daughter was recording, the panic in his eyes, the fumbling to end the call. Too late. When the video ended, Judge Williams took off her glasses and looked at Derek for a long moment. Then she spoke. She said she had been on the bench for 30 years. She had seen many divorce cases, many men who tried to hide assets, many women who were told they had nothing. But she had rarely seen a case this clear. She said the evidence was overwhelming. I was not just an employee. I was a co-founder, a co-owner, and a full partner in Hampton Construction. The documents proved it. The tax returns proved it. Derek's own words proved it. She said the dissipation of marital assets was egregious. Derek had spent at minimum $1.2 million on his affair over the past 2 years, money that belonged to both of us, money he had no right to spend alone. She said the penthouse purchase was particularly troubling. Using company funds for personal purposes was not just a marital issue. It was potentially criminal. She was referring the matter to the district attorney's office for investigation. Derek's face went from pale to gray. Criminal investigation. He hadn't expected that. Judge Williams continued. She said given the strength of the evidence, she was granting the emergency motions. All assets would remain frozen pending final resolution. I would have exclusive use of the marital home. Derek would pay temporary spousal support of $8,000 per month. And she strongly encouraged both parties to reach a settlement, because if this case went to trial, she said, looking directly at Derek, the outcome would not be favorable for the respondent. That was legal speak for Derek. You're going to lose everything. His lawyer asked for a recess, asked for time to confer with his client. The judge granted it. 20 minutes. I watched Derek and his lawyer huddle in the corner of the courtroom. I could see Derek's hands shaking. I could see him arguing, gesturing, probably insisting there had to be another way. There wasn't. When they came back, Derek's lawyer said they were open to settlement discussions. Victoria nodded, like she expected exactly this. She said we would be in touch. She said we had a proposal ready. She said Derek should review it carefully and respond within 48 hours. The hearing was adjourned. As I stood to leave, Derek caught my eye across the courtroom. He looked like a man who had just watched his whole life collapse. Part of me felt sorry for him, the part that remembered the hungry young man in the diner, the part that remembered the dreams we built together. But that part was small now, and getting smaller every day. He made his choices. He called me a mistake. He tried to throw me away. Now he was learning what that mistake really cost. I walked out of that courthouse with my head held high and my future in my own hands. For the first time in 22 years, I was free. 2 days after the hearing, Derek showed up at the house. My house. The house that was now legally mine to occupy. The house he couldn't enter without my permission. I was in the kitchen making dinner when I heard the doorbell, then the knocking. Then Derek's voice calling my name. "Marcella, Sella, please, we need to talk." I didn't answer. I just kept stirring my pot of soup and let him knock. He knocked for 15 minutes. His voice went from pleading to frustrated to desperate. He said he was sorry. He said he made mistakes. He said he never meant to hurt me. He said we could work this out. I didn't believe a word of it. Finally, I walked to the front door. I didn't open it. I spoke through the wood. I told him to go away. I told him anything he wanted to say he could say through our lawyers. I told him he had 48 hours to respond to our settlement proposal, and if he didn't, we were going to trial. His voice changed. The pleading stopped. Now he sounded angry. He said I was being unreasonable. He said I was destroying our family. He said the kids would never forgive me for tearing their parents apart. I laughed. I actually laughed. I told him he destroyed this family when he started sleeping with a woman half his age. I told him the kids already knew everything. I told him they had chosen to stand with me. There was a long silence on the other side of the door. Then Derek said something that showed me exactly who he really was. He said, "You think you're so smart now, don't you? You think you've won. You're still the same diner girl from Baltimore. You always will be. No matter how much money you take from me, you'll never be anything more than that." I felt the old wound open, the one he'd been picking at for years, the one that said I wasn't good enough, wasn't pretty enough, wasn't successful enough, wasn't enough. But this time, the wound didn't bleed. This time, it just made me angry. I opened the door. Derek stepped back, surprised. He probably expected me to be crying, expected me to be broken. I wasn't. I looked him in the eyes and I said, "You're right, Derek. I am still that diner girl, the one who worked 3 jobs so you could go to school, the one who gave you her grandmother's inheritance, the one who built your company while you took all the credit. That diner girl made you everything you are, and now that diner girl is taking it all back." I stepped closer. He stepped back. "You called me your youthful mistake, but here's the truth. You were my mistake. 22 years of my life wasted on a man who never saw my value, but I see it now, and the court sees it, and soon everyone will see it." I stepped back inside. "You have 48 hours. Don't waste them." I closed the door in his face. My hands were shaking. But it wasn't from fear. It was from power. From finally saying what I should have said years ago. The next day I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I should. It was Simone. Her voice was different from what I expected. Not arrogant, not confident. She sounded scared. She said she needed to talk to me. She said there were things I needed to know. She said she wasn't who I thought she was. I should have hung up. Victoria would have told me to hang up. Don't engage with the other woman. It never ends well. But I was curious, and maybe a little bit petty. I wanted to see the woman who thought she could replace me. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop, neutral ground, public place. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth wearing sunglasses inside, looking like she wanted to disappear. She was beautiful. I'll give her that. Young, thin, well-dressed, the kind of woman who turns heads when she walks into a room. But up close I could see the cracks, the dark circles under her eyes, the nervous way she kept checking the door, the slight tremble in her manicured hands. She wasn't living her best life with my husband. She was afraid. I sat down across from her. I didn't order anything. I just waited. She started talking. Fast, like she needed to get it all out before she lost her nerve. She said she didn't know Derek was married at first. He told her he was divorced. He told her his ex-wife was crazy obsessive, wouldn't let him go. He told her all the things cheating men tell their mistresses. By the time she found out the truth, she was already in too deep. She was living in that penthouse. She had quit her job at the gym because Derek said he would take care of her. She was completely dependent on him. And that's when she saw the real Derek. The charming man disappeared. In his place was someone controlling, jealous, critical. He monitored her phone. He told her what to wear. He got angry if she talked to other men, even just saying hello. He called her stupid when she made mistakes. He said she was lucky he was taking care of her. He said no one else would want her. Sound familiar? I sat there listening to this young woman describe my marriage. The same patterns, the same manipulation, the same slow erosion of self-worth. Derek hadn't changed. He'd just found a new victim. Simone said she wanted out. But she had nothing. No job, no savings, no family nearby. Everything she had was tied to Derek. If she left, she'd be on the streets. She said she came to me because she didn't know where else to turn. She said she knew I probably hated her, and she deserved it. But she hoped maybe I could understand. I looked at this woman I had been prepared to hate. This woman who had slept with my husband, who had worn the jewelry he bought with my money, who had laughed when he called me boring and plain. And I saw myself. 22 years ago. Young, naive, believing in a man who didn't deserve it. I didn't forgive her. What she did was wrong. She knew he was married eventually, and she stayed anyway. She made her choices. But I understood her, and I felt sorry for her, because she was about to learn the same lesson I did, just faster. I told her the truth. I told her Derek was about to lose everything. The penthouse she was living in, bought with company money that was partly mine. It would have to be sold. The fancy lifestyle going away. The promises he made her worthless. She started crying. Not pretty crying. Ugly crying with mascara running down her face. I waited until she was done. Then I gave her some advice. The advice I wish someone had given me 20 years ago. I told her to get out now, before she wasted more years on a man who would never see her value. I told her to find a job, find a place to stay, find her own independence. I told her to never ever make a man her whole world again. She asked if I could help her find a job, help her get on her feet. I almost said no. She was the other woman. She didn't deserve my help. But then I thought about what kind of woman I wanted to be. Not the bitter ex-wife who tore down other women, but the woman who lifted them up even when they didn't deserve it. I gave her Gwen's number. Gwen's PR firm was always looking for receptionists. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. I told her to call tomorrow. I told her to use my name. Then I stood up and left. I never saw Simone again after that day. But Gwen told me she did call. She did get the job. She was working her way up slowly, building a life of her own. Good for her. I had bigger things to focus on. 48 hours were almost up. The 48 hours came and went. Derek's lawyer called Victoria at 11:59 p.m. on the deadline day. They were ready to negotiate. The meeting happened in Victoria's conference room, neutral territory, but our home court. On one side of the table, me, Victoria, and Pat. Pat was there as my financial advisor now. She had taken a leave of absence from her firm to help me through this. On the other side, Derek and his lawyer, just the two of them, no family, no friends, no support system. He looked terrible, even worse than in court. I heard from Jalen that Derek had been sleeping in a motel since I got exclusive use of the house. A motel. The CEO of a $12 million company sleeping in a motel because he couldn't access his own money. Victoria started the meeting by laying out our demands. 1. 50% ownership of Hampton Construction, which was my legal right as co-founder. That meant $6 million in equity. 2. Full ownership of this marital home which I had paid for with my inheritance and maintained with my income for 20 years, valued at $1.2 million. 3. Reimbursement for the $1.2 million Derek had dissipated on his affair. Every hotel room, every piece of jewelry, every dollar spent on Simone would be added back to my share. 4. Half of all retirement accounts, investments, and savings, approximately $800,000. 5. Spousal support of $10,000 per month for 5 years. Derek had the earning capacity. I had given up my career for his. It was only fair. Total value approximately $7.2 million. Derek's lawyer almost choked. He said that was outrageous. He said we were trying to take everything. He said Derek had built that company with his own hands. Victoria smiled. That cold, dangerous smile. She said if we went to trial, we would get more. She said the judge had already indicated how she would rule. She said the criminal investigation into the penthouse purchase was still ongoing. She said if Derek wanted to fight, we were happy to fight. But if he wanted to end this quickly and quietly, this was the deal. Derek sat there silent. His lawyer whispered to him. They went back and forth, hushed and intense. Finally, Derek looked up at me. He said he had one condition. He said he wanted to keep the company. He would pay me my 50% in cash over time. He would sell assets, take out loans, whatever he had to do. But he wanted to keep Hampton Construction. I thought about it. The company I had helped build. The company that bore his name, not mine. The company where I had sat in a corner desk, invisible for years. I didn't want it. I didn't want to run a construction company. I didn't want to work with the employees who had watched me be treated like nothing. I didn't want any piece of Derek's world. I wanted my own world. Built my own way. I told Victoria we could accept that condition, but the payment plan had to be ironclad, guaranteed, with penalties if he missed a single payment. Victoria nodded. She started drafting terms. We negotiated for 6 hours, back and forth on every detail. How much up front? How much monthly? What happened if the company lost value? What happened if Derek tried to hide assets again? By the end, we had a deal. I would receive $3 million up front. Derek would have to sell the penthouse, liquidate investments, and take out loans against the company to pay it. I would receive $200,000 per month for the next 24 months, $4.8 million total. That was my remaining share of the company, plus the dissipation reimbursement. I would keep the house free and clear. I would receive spousal support of $8,000 per month for 3 years. I would have no further claim on Hampton Construction. And Derek would have no further claim on me. Total approximately $7.2 million. Exactly what we asked for. When the final document was ready, Victoria slid it across the table to Derek. He stared at it for a long moment. His hand shook as he picked up the pen. I watched him sign away everything he thought he owned. Page after page, initial after initial. His signature getting shakier with each one. When he finished, he looked at me one last time. He said, I hope you're happy, Marcella. I hope it was worth destroying everything we built. I took the signed documents from Victoria. I looked at them. My name, his name, $7.2 million. Then I looked at Derek. I said, I didn't destroy anything, Derek. I just finally claimed what was already mine. You're the one who destroyed us, the day you looked at me and saw nothing. I stood up. But thank you for calling me your youthful mistake, because that was the wake-up call I needed. That was the moment I remembered who I was before you made me forget. I gathered my things. Goodbye, Derek. I'd say it was nice knowing you, but we both know that would be a lie. I walked out of that conference room, out of that building, out of my old life, $7.2 million. But honestly, it wasn't about the money. It was about the look on his face when he realized the woman he had dismissed as nothing had taken everything. It was about the moment he understood that his youthful mistake was the smartest decision he ever made. And she was walking away with the proof. 1 year later, I stood on the balcony of my new condo, watching the Atlanta sunset paint the sky orange and pink. My condo, in one of those fancy high-rises I used to walk past and wonder about. 32nd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, a kitchen with an island where I actually had time to cook for myself, a closet full of clothes I picked out because I liked them, not because someone told me to be invisible. I bought it with my own money, cash. And every morning when I woke up and looked at that view, I remembered where I came from. The diner in Baltimore, the 3 jobs, the sacrifices. I never forgot that girl. But I wasn't her anymore. I was something new. Something stronger. The first thing I did after the settlement was take a vacation. My first real vacation in over 20 years. I went to Paris with Pat and Gwen. We drank wine. We ate croissants. We laughed until we cried. Gwen took a picture of me in front of the Eiffel Tower. I was wearing a red dress. I was smiling. Actually smiling, not the fake smile I'd been wearing for years. That picture is framed on my wall now, right next to the first dollar I ever earned on my own. Because yes, I started my own business. It's a consulting firm. I help small businesses with their finances, their books, their planning, all the things I did for Hampton Construction for 22 years. All the things Derek said weren't important. Turns out they were very important. Turns out a lot of business owners need exactly what I know how to do. I started small, just me and a laptop working out of my living room. But word spread. Clients started referring other clients. Within 6 months, I had to hire an assistant. Within a year, I had a small team. The company is called Sella Consulting. Sella. The name Derek used to call me when he loved me. I took it back. I made it mine. Last quarter, we made $200,000 in revenue. Not bad for a diner girl from Baltimore. The children are doing well. Jalen graduated from college. He got a job at an engineering firm in Charlotte. He calls me every Sunday just to check in. He says he's proud of me. He says watching me stand up for myself taught him what real strength looks like. Destiny transferred to a school closer to home. She changed her major from business to psychology. She says she wants to understand why people stay in bad relationships. She wants to help women like her mother find their way out. She and I are closer now than we've ever been. We have dinner every Wednesday. We talk about everything. The things I couldn't tell her when I was trying to keep the family together. She's in therapy. We both are. Turns out 22 years of being told you're not enough leaves some scars. But we're healing, together. Mother Lorraine still comes over for Sunday dinners. She's the grandmother my children deserve. She cut Derek off completely after the settlement. Said she didn't raise a man who treats women like that. Derek didn't take it well. He tried to guilt her, tried to turn her against me. But Lorraine is old school. She believes in right and wrong, and what Derek did was wrong. I heard he barely speaks to her now. His choice, his loss. As for Derek himself, Hampton Construction is struggling. Turns out the CEO wasn't the genius he thought he was. Without me handling the books, managing the clients, cleaning up his messes, things started falling apart. He had to lay off half the staff. He lost 3 major contracts. The company that was worth $12 million is now worth maybe 4. And he still owes me almost $3 million in payments. He's selling the big house, moving to a smaller place, driving a regular car instead of the luxury SUV. He's not poor, not yet, but he's not the king he used to be, and Simone. She left him, took the job at Gwen's firm, built her own life. She's engaged now to a nice man who treats her right, a man who actually knows her value. I don't feel sorry for Derek, not anymore. He made his choices. He threw away a good woman for a fantasy, and when the fantasy fell apart, he had nothing left. That's not my tragedy. That's his. My tragedy ended the day I walked out of that conference room with $7.2 million and my dignity intact. Now let me tell you why I shared this story. If you're watching this, maybe you see yourself in me. Maybe you've been carrying everyone. Maybe you've been invisible. Maybe someone has been telling you for years that you're not enough, you're not smart, you're not valuable. Maybe you believe them. I believed Derek for 22 years. I believed I was lucky to have him. I believed I couldn't survive without him. I believed all his lies about who I was and what I was worth. And then he called me a mistake. And something broke. But what broke wasn't me. What broke was the illusion, the fake story he had been telling me about myself. Because I was never a mistake. I was the foundation. I was the builder. I was the one who made everything possible. And so are you. Whatever situation you're in, whatever someone has told you, whatever you've started to believe about yourself, I want you to know the truth. You have value. You have worth. You have power. Maybe you don't see it yet. Maybe someone has been blocking your view for so long you've forgotten it's there. But it's there. I promise you it's there. You just have to claim it. It won't be easy. It wasn't easy for me. There were days I wanted to give up. Days I wanted to crawl back and accept whatever crumbs Derek would give me. Days I thought maybe he was right. Maybe I was nothing without him. But I had my sister circle. Pat, Gwen, Victoria. My mama, even though she passed years ago, I still heard her voice telling me I deserve better. My children who looked at me with new respect when I finally stood up. You need your people. Find them. The ones who tell you the truth, the ones who remind you who you are, the ones who hold you up when you can't hold yourself. And then when you're ready, take back what's yours. It might not be $7 million. It might just be your peace, your dignity, your self-respect, your freedom. That's worth more than any settlement. I'm Marcella Jenkins now. Dropped the Hampton. Took back my family name. I'm 43 years old. I'm a business owner. I'm a mother. I'm a friend. I'm a survivor. And I'm happy. Actually, genuinely happy. For the first time in longer than I can remember. My husband called me his youthful mistake. Turns out the only mistake was his, and it cost him everything. Don't let someone else define your worth. Don't let someone else write your story. Don't let someone else decide what you deserve. You deserve everything. Now go get it. This is Marcella Jenkins signing off. Peace, love, and self-respect. Always.